Good afternoon again. Ralph Hartman here on the roadside of Beneva. Prospective candidate for Congress 2022. Anyway, after I walked out of the Bob Dole office back in 1996, as I said, a nice old man concernedly working the phone said, "Then who's out there caring for the American people?" So anyway, it was nice to realize that some were realizing, nice to realize that some knew that I wasn't deliberately being antisocial and choosing to live out on the roadside, but that it was a circumstance that was being forced on me, and that I was continuing to be a caring citizen. So anyway, there was a different attitude soon after. At the time, I spent some of my nights behind a building on a corner of Bee Ridge and Radnor. The corner of Bee Ridge and Radnor, at that time, the second floor of the building was a U.S. Army officers recruiting facility. So anyway, I spent some of the nights underneath that stairwell, some of the nights on the stairwell, some of the nights on the upper sidewalk, and most nights ended up behind the building on the grass. So anyway, the morning after the election of 1996, I'm telling you the truth, whatever the Clinton administration turned out to be, is the traffic was dim, the broadcasting in it was terrible, and they were portraying themselves as being members of the Clinton administration and absolutely furious that they got reelected. Honestly. Particularly an old man who was a frenzy of shouting constantly. For me to hear in particular, while I was laying behind the building trying to get some rest on that morning, the morning after the election. Honestly, the old man was shouting burning threats. He was shouting, "We're gonna burn." You know, those particular words, he was shouting them constantly, sounding like a very intent maniac. Maybe a couple of more hours of it. And I'm telling you, I'm totally against burning threats. I'm for people being saved. You know, I never think of burning anyone. I never even thought of it. You know, it's terrible. But the old man in that traffic, with others who were saying that they were furious that they got reelected, were constantly threatening, saying an angriest intent of threatening to burn people. And as I'm speaking, somebody indicating being aware of that time emphasized what I just said, projected from south of here traffic. Honestly, you know. So anyway, you know, it's you know, it was really worrisome. So that's, I mentioned the day leaving the Bob Dole office when the man said out there caring for the American people. But the next day, you know, it wasn't the next day, but whenever, the day after the election, there was a different old man saying a very different intent. Well, we can thank God, you know, that 96 passed, 97, 98, 99, 2000, and hopefully there weren't any burnings. Hopefully everyone continued securely instead. Whatever other various arguments that the people continue to be safe. So anyway, I just remembered that, so I thought I'd mention it. I visited the Army office there on a number of occasions. Like I said, I had some amateur paperwork, concern against Hitler kind of threats, that I was experiencing all the disruptive rampaging. And there was indication of concern, you know. There was quiet indications at night instead of the rampaging. The first time I stopped into that office was in 1996, and I know it doesn't seem likely, but I think that first time was because of seeing the cover of a weekly news tabloid. It was a prediction of a comet or something getting ready to crash into the Earth soon. Well, I mostly never read any of the tabloids, that there's so much obvious propaganda. But that particular cover reminded me of some serious studies that I had accomplished in 94 and 95 that included research from a book named Comet by Carl Sagan, and there were other indications that indicating that there might be some kind of a space conspiracy. So when I noticed that prediction for 1996, that I didn't have any info about it, but I did worry, and I remember stopping into the Army office there and mentioning it. On another occasion, I accumulated a bit more paperwork. I was carrying a duffel bag at the time. Like I said, the disruption was crippling. It wasn't the fault of good deputies, but somewhere up in the upper echelon somewhere was very intransigent, And so on another occasion, I walked into the office and a young captain spoke to me courteously, and I said, I've got some paperwork here, you might want to read. I think it might be important to our people's security. And the young captain said, that he appreciated, but why should we try to duplicate your efforts? And I guess reminded me of previous times. And I said, whether it was the same visit or another, there was another time I said, but yeah, I understand that you're just a recruiting command, but you could forward it through your chain of command to others that are more appropriate for whatever matter. And they just courteously sent me out on my way. So interestingly, however, on one of those particular occasions, there was an old Southern man on the shortwave radio or whatever radio they had in one of the back offices in the particular recruiting place. And one of them was an old country sounding man who portrayed himself as being a deputy. And one day, I'm mostly sure it was in '96, that the old